You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome here to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network for Fans First Sports Network. I'm Skyler Timmons, joined here with Evan Lang, and we're hurrying along here because special guest joining us here this morning, all the way down in Scottsdale at spring training. We're joined by Rockies 2022 first-round pick Gabriel Hughes, who, right before recording, had to change his shirt because he's got to look fresh here this morning.
Oh, you are really going to put him on blast like that immediately
Yes,
after starting?
We have fun here. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you here.
My pleasure. Happy to be here in a clean, unstained, nothing on it shirt.
Yeah, you got to look fresh here at spring training. And Gabriel, we're happy to have you here because it's fun to have you in spring training, really here, getting our fans' first real chance to get a good look at you, because you've had a really interesting journey since getting drafted and working your way through the system, because it kind of hit a road bump pretty early on with the Tommy John surgery. And first thing I want to ask is, how's the arm feeling? How are you feeling in your first, really big league camp, so to speak, in terms of getting that real good look?
My arm's feeling great right now. I was able to take a good off season, take some rest after the fall league, and then come back really re-energized and reinvigorated, ready to go for camp. After my first start, arm's feeling great. Arm felt good in the 2 innings that I threw this past Saturday. Getting ready to throw 2 to 3 more tomorrow. But I'm feeling really good physically, in a really good spot mentally, and just ready to go.
Mm-hmm. And something I liked, I was reading articles, interviews you did with Thomas Harding over at MLB.com, and really, what was that process like for you on the road to recovery last year and getting figured things out? How did that rehab process and getting better when you're not able to go out and pitch? How were you able to still grow as a player and as an individual when you're not able to get out there on the mound every day?
One of the hardest things about the rehab process and the recovery process was staring down the 12 to 14 months that I wasn't going to be able to play just in the face and knowing, all right, you have 12 to 14 months. How are you going to look at it? My mom always said, it could be a blessing in disguise. There's going to be a silver lining. It just really depends on how you look at it. And so I took it as the opportunity to learn. I was able to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise. I was able to read a lot of books. I was able to watch a lot of movies. And I think having that mindset, and this is the biggest tip I would give to someone who is going through the recovery process, is having that mindset of, I get this opportunity to have 12 months where I get to learn, where I get to delve. Jaden Hill had texted me because he had Tommy John in college, and we were good friends. We're still good friends, but we were at that point. I was coming off of just being in Spokane and playing with him, and he texted me and said, hey, you have the opportunity right now to delve deeper into your friendships and delve deeper into a relationship with your family, with friends, with a girlfriend, with whoever it is. But you have the opportunity now to do all of that, to go deeper into those relationships. And so I think that's the biggest thing that helped me, was just having that mindset of, I get this opportunity I have all this time. How do I get the opportunity to fill it? I'm never going to have this much free time, because the first 6 weeks of rehab are nothing. I didn't really do anything. So I would just sit around and be like, okay, what am I going to do today? I have 14 hours to fill until I go to bed again. And just having the opportunity to go, okay, you know what? I'm going to read all the things that I wish I had read before. I'm going to watch all these movies that I wish I've always heard referenced, but I've never seen. And it flew by. The time flew by. Hundreds of movies and books and podcasts and songs and X, Y, and Z later. And we're coming out on the other end of it. But that was the biggest help for me, was just how I viewed the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like something that you said to Thomas Harding of, it's not time lost if it's well spent. And I like that mentality. And so translating it over now that you're getting back into action, how did that, having to go through that process, how do you feel like that's helped you as a pitcher now, as you're getting back into the swing of things heading into 2025?
The biggest help to me as a pitcher, I think, is really dialing in the process of what I'm doing. Instead of just going out every day and, okay, we'll see what I have today. If it's good, great. If it's not, we're going to battle with what I have. But we're just going to go out. And I think the rehab process has allowed me to dial in the process that I take every single week in my routines, in how I go about my business, making sure I'm really hitting these marks and tracking them over time, and making sure that I'm really taking care of all the little things, all the process related things, and letting the outcomes take care of themselves instead of focusing on the outcomes of the games and not really worrying about the process. And so I think that's been really the biggest shift, is that mindset of I'm taking care of the process. I'm taking care of little things every single day, and I'm letting the big goals and the big outcomes, those all take care of themselves. As long as I'm committed to relentlessly executing my process and being brilliant at the basics.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabriel, I'm curious if you mentioned during your recovery period, Jaden Hill reaching out to you. I'm wondering if in the lead up to camp, anything like that, if any of the guys from the big league squad reached out to you and worked with you at all in terms of getting ready for camp coming off that surgery.
I think one of the biggest helps, especially when I was going through surgery, was the fact that Senzatella and Marquez had both had it. Senzatella had it 2 days before me, the day before me, in the same spot in Texas, and Marquez had it a couple months before me. But when I got back to the complex, being able to ask them about how they were doing, especially as we're all rehabbing together, Senzatella being around in the complex all summer, and then being able to go out and start in Denver again. But getting back to camp this spring and being able to talk to Senzatella and Marquez have been some of the greatest helps to me. Being able to go to them and ask questions and ask how they're doing things. And I think it's a two-way street, because they've been asking me questions about my recovery and my rehab. But I think those two are the biggest helps, have been the biggest helps to me so far, with just how to manage the process and really how to go out and compete still, knowing that surgery's behind me now and I need to go out and give 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's awesome is, all three of you have pitched here in big league camp games, and all of you have looked really good, and getting back to it. How much does that say to you and give you that confidence, like, okay, I'm back. Let's just keep going. That all the Tommy Johns in the past, let's roll. Yeah.
A big thing with surgery and rehab is always, can I trust myself? Can I trust my body to perform at the same level that it had performed pre-surgery? And there's always some aspect of mentally, you have to first be in a spot where you say, okay, I'm confident in the work and the preparation that I've put in. I can go out there and compete. But then once you get out there and you physically are able to do it, are able to throw at the same velocity that you were pre-surgery, are able to locate strikes, locate good pitches, get outs, it's just another step. It's another milestone. It's another, okay, I knew mentally I could do this, but physically I can also do this as well. It's really just synchronizing those two aspects of your performance. But it's always a nice vote of confidence, really to keep that momentum going into the next outing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you were out in, you're still in Arizona, but when you were in Arizona for the fall league, this most recent October and November, and, it was a little bumpy coming out there just because, your first game action basically since 2023. But how much of that still ended up being a confidence boost of I'm here, I'm on the mound, and we're starting to get back into the groove of things, of having was the biggest thing for you just being I am back on the mound pitching games, or were there other things that you looked at for the Arizona Fall League in terms of ramping up for this season?
There were multiple goals I had for the fall league. The biggest one was just being able to go out and physically perform for 6 weeks. Really abbreviated schedule, but just being able to stick to that schedule and go out and make my start every week. That was a huge confidence booster for me mentally. Obviously, I had other goals as well, to work on pitches or to work on how I'm going to pitch guys, my attack plans, to work on all those things. And I think it's fair to say that in my limited experience in the fall league, I had my successes and I had my failures. And being able to look back on that and say, okay, none of these were failures as long as I'm able to learn from them. There's no achievement without struggle first. And so being able to look back on those and say, okay, here's how I failed, here's where I struggled, and here's what I'm going to learn from it. And I'm going to take those lessons going forward into big league camp. So knowing that my curveball wasn't where I wanted it to be, my slider wasn't where I wanted it to be, being able to take those lessons from the fall league, work on them over the offseason, and then come into big league camp with a two pitches that I'm much more comfortable with than when I had started the fall league. So, I think the big goal was, yes, just going out to physically perform, but alongside that, those auxiliary goals of I need to see how my stuff performs against competition, and where I'm lacking, I need to be better. I need to work better on. I need to work harder on it. And so I think being able to take those failures and those lessons with me into big league camp has given me a much firmer base to pitch from.
Yeah. And I bet walking away from fall league with a trophy probably doesn't hurt either.
No, it does not. We're gonna ring sometime. We're gonna ring sometime this year, so that doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah. Kind of transitioning here. You touched on pitches, and that's something we wanted to touch on. And really, it's that slider. I think it's turned into a buzzsaw in your start the other day. Give us a little rundown on your pitch mix and what really your go-to, what you feel like is your signature pitch here.
Yeah, my signature pitch has always been my four-seam fastball, and it's always had the natural cut action to it. And going into this offseason, I knew that, and I wanted to make that the forefront of my repertoire. And having a curveball and a slider that play better off that were my primary goals. And I think I've gotten to that point where I have a curveball and slider that play much better off it, especially the slider. It's really, I'm just trying to throw it as hard as I possibly can. And it worked well on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to carrying that forward and carrying that momentum forward. But then also those secondary goals of I want to develop a better changeup and a better two-seam, something to move the opposite direction against the plate. And so really having those are my 5 main pitches right now. And those are the ones that I'm rocking with. Those are the ones I'm comfortable with. And those are the ones I feel I have the best chance of getting hitters out with.
Mm-hmm. And so with that chance to be in camp, you're among some of the big league starters for the Rockies. A lot of these guys have a lot of those pitches you're talking about. Are you picking guys' brains, trying to figure out, well, how do you throw your changeup and that kind of thing?
I think the big thing for me is seeing how they pitch hitters. I have the grips that I'm comfortable with, but I just need to understand how guys sequence. And so that's what I've really been paying attention to as I've been in these games. I've been watching, okay, that was a fastball. Okay, what would I throw after this? And then seeing if that matches up with what Marquez throws or what Senzatella throws. And so that's kind of the big thing for me is I've been watching how guys have been sequencing, asking questions about how they're sequencing. And that's been a huge help being around having those guys that I'm able to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that. I like what you're saying. You've already got what you like, comfortable with the sequencing and talking shop. That is pretty cool. We're running out of time here with you, but something I wanted to ask you, and you mentioned working down the complex league, and we don't hear much, but have you been able to work in the pitching lab, and how has that been beneficial? What's that experience been like working in the Rockies pitching lab?
I've been very fortunate to work closely with both Brandon Stone and Emilio Martinez, as well as really Trevor Swartz, the guys that we have in our weight room, and being able to combine the knowledge that we're learning in the pitching lab with what we're doing in the weight room. And so I starting over the summer, every couple of weeks, I would go to the pitching lab, throw, and then a couple of days later, sit down with Stone, Emilio, Trevor, the PTs here, the athletic trainers on staff, sit down with them and say, here's what we saw. And then with the pitching coach would be like, here's how we're going to work on this in drills. And then with the strength staff would be, here's how we're going to work on this in the weight room. So it's been a really great experience being able to combine all those areas of expertise to utilize the technology that we have readily available and create something better, create a better motion, create stronger muscles, create whatever it is. And so I've been very fortunate to work closely with Stone in that regard and be able to apply those lessons to my baseball career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's been nice to hear, especially when it comes to the pitching lab, of just how much of a boon it is, but a big step in the right direction for the Rockies organization in terms of working on pitching development, both mechanically and physically. So that's really good to hear that it's been such a positive experience to have access to.
Absolutely. No, it's been a great resource, being able to use it. And I know I've heard this from a lot of other guys too, just being able to utilize it and learn things that you wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gabriel, before we let you go, I do have to ask you one random question. If you had to be stranded in the desert, something happens, you're out there in Arizona, you get stranded in the desert, who is the teammate you'd most like to be stranded in the desert with?
No, I'd probably have to give it to one of the Southern boys, one of the resort, like Hunter Goodman. Give me a like someone who's resourceful, who knows how to hunt, because I don't. So that's probably who I'd have to go with. Someone like that.
You're the medical guy.
Yeah. I've got. You want to talk literature? That's all me. You want to talk philosophy? All day. Hunt? Nah, not my thing.
My last question for you, similar vein, but going back to what you were talking about here at the beginning. Favorite book and favorite movie that you read and watched while you were on downtime.
Favorite movie? This has been my favorite for a couple of years, so I can't. It wasn't just in my rehab journey, but Dazed and Confused by Richard Linklater. Favorite movie, hands down. I rewatched it a couple times over my rehab. Favorite book? I read this book, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Phenomenal book about sleep and how important it is. That's probably the one that immediately comes to mind. I liked The Myth of Sisyphus by Camus, and I liked Existentialism is a Humanism by Sartre. So those were probably my two favorite philosophy ones, but probably Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker.
There you go.
Awesome.
Well above my pay grade.
No, I'm sitting here. It's like, what's my favorite book?
Cat in the Hat. Well, Gabriel, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and wish you the best of luck into the season. Good luck with your start tomorrow. We look forward to following your journey along, and look forward to seeing you in Colorado. That's going to be awesome. We're really anticipating that. So best of luck.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
This has been Affected by Altitude. We've been joined by Rockies pitcher Gabriel Hughes, and we'll see you next time here on Affected by Altitude. This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.